We were actually in the uh, National Guard head building waiting to be triaged. They dropped us off there, those that were healthy. And then they were already showing the footage. And I couldn't believe that we were on that. We were all looking at it. And then finally some officials came and turned the TV off because they felt like it wasn't appropriate for us to watch it at the time. But that was like a few minutes afterwards, call it 15 minutes. Because you didn't know what happened.
Right.
And we still weren't, fully triaged yet.
Yeah.
And like, whoa, like it was amazing when we saw what we walked off of.
And they said no survivors on the news. For the first hour, they didn't know if there were survivors or not. And then I remember hearing, right as that they announced that, my mom started to cry. And then I thought something's not right here.
Yeah.
And they turned off the TV and they started calling people on the phone, and I think they didn't want me to get too wrapped up in it yet. But, that first minute or two was scary.
Once I started crashing, I think the blindfold, being pushed off a cliff with a blindfold, everything went quiet. It was so loud, I remember smells, electrical smell. I smelled it dark, and I remember then hanging from the ceiling after it was all stopped, and I was trying to figure out, there was no tape to play in the head, where am I? I knew where I was at, but you're hanging upside down, and then then as we walked off, we were actually walking on the ceiling, which was now the floor.
Yeah.
It was dark and fiery, and when I walked outside, that's when I think my heart probably increased 100 beats between that beat and the next beat, and that's when the adrenaline hit. That's when you felt the fire. That's when you decided that you needed to find someone to help, right? But inside, it was almost it's hard to explain. But I think what happens, I think the human thing is all so unbelievable, but that's a mode of protection, right? Because if you got the blinders wide open, how could you, so all of a sudden, I don't know if it's a part of shock or if it's part of whatever, but I got very focused, and probably would have followed anybody anywhere, to be honest with you, but everybody was going that way, and that's which way I went. So when we were crashing, I remember saying, I don't know if I actually said it out loud, but it sounded like it was out loud. It was so loud in my head, is that, we were bending over, grabbing our ankles, waiting for an emergency landing. And then when the crash hit, then we started crashing, and I was cognizant the whole time. And I remember thinking, that's it. And it was like being pushed off a cliff with a blindfold on. You're like, like you're waiting to fall.
Yeah.
And you know what's going to happen, right? You're just waiting to hit. And that's kind of what it felt like in those few seconds, which I imagine weren't all that long, but seemed longer. And I was waiting to get I remember thinking, I remember feeling exposed on my back because I was bending over. And I was waiting like something was going to cut me in half or I was going to blow up, and I was just waiting, kind of like you would, but you can't see it, right? And then imagine if you're falling from the cliff and then all of a sudden you just land on the awning or somebody catches you, and that's what it was like. All of a sudden it just came to rest, and then there we were, and so while we were crashing, you kind of transition from we're going to be fine, I'm just going to be a little bit late, to oh wow, because you never think it's going to happen. I talk now today, if I could only share one thing with them after the crash, I talk to people about the power of forgiveness, right? Because if you think about it, here's a young guy that was flying all over the world, country, knowing that was going to be my future, right? And then for a moment there, this got ripped away from me. I could no longer, this is how you think, right? I could no longer fly, you think about all that kind of stuff. And then, and I don't know if it's because I didn't sue or whatever the case might be, but there's this forgiveness. You have to forgive, the airlines, the plane manufacturer, the list goes on, right? You got to let it go. I would say God has a plan for everybody's life, but I could also say there are no throwaway people. I believe you have a plan for everybody's life. And then, of course, the critic would say, what about this person and that person? I don't know the answers to that either, but I believe that I survived for a purpose. And that doesn't mean I have more purpose than somebody, that's how, the back and forth of, I don't believe I had more purpose than somebody else who didn't survive. I don't know how all that works, right? But that's one of the biggest things, is that it allows me to have that trust that every day, there's a plan for my life, and I feel like I want to be the best version of myself. I guess that's the big takeaway. I want to be the best version of myself, because I believe I'm on a second, like you got a free chance, and so it's a bit of a challenge. It doesn't wear me out. It doesn't cause me to get anxiety, but I do feel like I want to maximize the fact that I should be dead, but I'm not.